Welcome to another episode of Stuck in My Mind podcast. I am your host, WIZE. Just want to thank everybody who's tuning in. If you're going to tune in later, catch the replay. Thank you for all the support and all the well wishes to me and my family, especially through this trying time. It's been a month since my mom passed away, and I just continuously get nothing but support and love from everybody out there. So thank you so much, and I greatly appreciate it. But let's just jump right into the show. My next guest is a West Point grad and a seasoned entrepreneur. Welcome to the show, Robert Poole.
Well, that's great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh man, thanks for being a guest. I love having conversations with people who got a lot of stuff to share, man. So you're a West Point grad. You're a seasoned entrepreneur. But my first question to you is, can you share your pivotal moment that led you from being an operator to an owner in your own business?
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, after I went to West Point, I was an Army officer for a while, and then I got out and I founded a sales and marketing company with a good friend of mine back in 2002, and we had grown the company from nothing to millions in revenue, and it was a great partnership. He was sort of the public face of the company and handled the clients and that sort of thing. I was behind the scenes running the sales teams and doing all that, but it was really a fantastic relationship because we were making a lot of money, and I was able to take off time whenever I want and vice versa. I took a 3-week honeymoon, and I think I called the office once to check in. They said, "Why are you calling?" Which was a good sign. And so we had a great thing going. And then in 2017, July 4th or whatever, it's a long story, but basically my business partner passed away from a heart issue. And suddenly here I am in charge of this large company with all these employees and doing everything. And not only was there not enough time in the day to do both my job and do his job, but I realized all of a sudden that, wow, I am stuck. I can't take a day off, much less a week or a month. And I realized that I got myself stuck and that I was, after all those years of trying to get myself out of doing the day-to-day, I was right back in it. And I was really, truly an operator of a business. I was more like an employee that owned 100% of the stock than I was an owner. And so I really kind of set out and said, I can't do this. My life is, I'm not going to make it, working like this. And so I set out sort of a journey to kind of figure out, how do I make that shift from operator to business owner? And so I've been going at that ever since.
So how did the passing of your business partner influence your approach to running a company?
Well, I think, it was a lot of things, but it's, I think the biggest theme was that it forced me to reevaluate what we were doing as a company. For many years, we had this great partnership, and he was known as sort of the teddy bear and real nice guy, and everybody loved him. And I was kind of the grumpy old guy that was behind the scenes. And for many years, I was focused on the money and, how much money we were making, and wasn't real concerned about, our clients, which in retrospect sounds horrible, but I'm just being honest. My focus was on, hey, what can I get and what can I do? And I realized a little before he passed away that I thought, he'd always been much more concerned about the clients than I was. And I really came to a realization that he was right. And I had it wrong all those years. And so I had sort of a epiphanal moment. And I was actually on vacation the week before he passed away. And when I came back, I was planning on having a talk with him and saying, you know what, I've been wrong all this time. I really, I apologize. And, we need to really refocus our company on the customer and our client, and not so much on what we get out of it. And unfortunately, I didn't get to have that conversation with him because of him passing away. But I really took that as emphasis to change the way we do business and change what my focus was, not so much on, what product or service can we sell to make more money, but how can we serve our clients in a way that's going to change their lives? So it was a fundamental shift in the mentality of our company. And, it took a few years to kind of turn that around because, you create a certain culture in whatever your company is in, and everybody kind of follows the leadership. So people had the same mentality that I did. There wasn't a lot of respect for our customers and clients. People weren't doing it for the right reason. And I had to sort of turn that ship around. But so I would say that's probably the biggest change that was a good change, that was brought about, by this whole tragedy that, really helped push me in the right direction, I think.
Okay. So so how does your West Point background shape your entrepreneurial journey and leadership style?
It's interesting. It's of course I'm a big believer in the military, and I think it's a fantastic experience for young people in particular. There's a lot of positives to it, and the one of the things I found that, and this goes along with some of it's maturity, but I think a lot of it goes along with in the military. If you think about it, when you have people that work for you, when you're in any kind of leadership position, those people pretty much have to do what you tell them to do, that you can give them orders, and it's not really optional whether they do what you want them to do. And so the leadership you're taught, you don't really have to focus on giving people the motivation to follow you because they have to. And that's a difference between that and what we do as entrepreneurs, which team building is so critically important. If we don't do that, if we don't learn how to effectively deal with people, they can go somewhere else. Whereas in the military, they can't. So although there was a lot of positives in the military, that was one aspect that I think that I didn't realize for quite some time working in entrepreneurship. But all the other things, the discipline and taking responsibility, which is probably one of the biggest ones. The military is very heavy, and West Point in particular is very heavy on taking accountability for our actions and not trying to blame outside forces. It's very easy, even in business to say, well, I can't sell anything because the economy is bad or inflation or, regulation or any number of excuses. But the bottom line is that it comes back to us. If we take responsibility for it, and accountability, we're going to be a lot better off, and we're going to attack problems differently and more effectively. So there's a lot of positive lessons that I learned in the military. And, like I said, I think the only real negative was that we didn't have to learn how to build a team with people that are volunteers, if you will, that work for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Where it's the next question is kind of it's kind of, especially in this day and age. So what prompted your interest in cold calling, and why do you believe it's still relevant in today's digital era?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm a little bit older. I'm 52 as of when we're recording this, and so I remember what it was like before there was internet and digital marketing and all that stuff. And
Mhm.
when I first got out of the Army back in the mid 90s, I didn't have any money. I was a young man starting out, and so there weren't a lot of options when it came to growing a business or selling. Cold calling was one of the main ways, either in person or over the phone. And so when I was starting out, I didn't have the money for advertising and that sort of thing. So cold calling, we started out doing that mostly out of necessity because we didn't have the money to do it, and all we had was a phone, and that's all you need. And so I became good at it over time, and it's one of those things that can be very effective. And a lot of people ask me these days, is it still effective in the age of digital marketing? Because let's face it, cold calling is you just say the words and most people shudder. It's not it's not a positive word usually, and it's because of like anything, there's bad actors in the space, and I think people have a vision of not only if you're calling somebody hanging up on you and the rejection involved with that, but also how annoying it is to get a cold call from a telemarketer trying to sell you magazines or any number of things. But I would say the difference is that, consumer-based telemarketing has certainly gone away. If you get a call on your cell phone these days, it's most likely a scam. But business to business, when you're calling uh, other businesses to talk about a B2B type of stuff, it's still very relevant. And there's a lot of reasons why cold calling still works, but it only works for specific types of businesses. Just generalization, I would say that mostly businesses that sell higher ticket product or services, if you're selling a $27 widget, it's most likely that you're going to do better selling that online, with traditional digital marketing techniques. But if you're selling a product that's 10, 20, $100,000, that's not something that somebody's going to click and put in their cart, so to speak. So they may initially find out about you through digital marketing, but I think what we've found is the best thing is combination of phone calls, cold calling, with backed up by some sort of digital marketing in the sense of follow-up emails, retargeting ads, and things like that, that work in conjunction with each other. So, we have clients that have been with us 16, 17 years doing it and still just as effective when they first started with us. So it can be very effective as, again, if it's the right company with the right product and service. But it's like everything in marketing. Anybody who tells you that their technique is going to work for your company no matter what is lying to you, because everything works sometimes and nothing works all the time. So you just got to figure out which of those marketing techniques work for you or which combination. And cold calling is certainly one of those options, and it's still a viable one today.
What advice do you give small business owners looking to strike a balance between day-to-day operations and strategic ownership? Because after your partner passed away, that was like kind of a role you had to like you said, you were both, you handled one and he handled the other. Now with small business owners, they're usually the main thing. They usually do both jobs. How do you tell them to balance both? How do you show them to balance both?
Yeah, and that's the $1 million question, and it's the difficult part. And I think there's a spectrum that we have to look at. As you said, particularly when you're starting out, you're probably doing most of the things yourself. And as you grow, you may hire employees or contractors. You may start with that or whatever. And over time, you're able to offload some of those things. But I think the thing that really changed my mentality and changed things for us as a company was when I started implementing a habit, and I got the idea from a guy named Keith Cunningham, who's got a great book called The Road Less Stupid, one of my favorite books. I highly recommend it. But he talked about this concept, what he called thinking time, and I kind of took that concept and converted it and made it my own. And so I developed a habit of taking at least 30 minutes. I started out with 30 minutes a day, where I kind of locked myself away, if you will, turned off the phone and the computer, and spent 30 minutes focusing on owner type of things. Like you said, strategic thinking, just starting out with basic questions like, why are we in business? Who are our customers right now? Who do we want them to be? How are we going to serve them? All those types of questions that are more owner strategic questions versus okay, how do I do this task that I have to do to fulfill this order or whatever? And by scheduling this, I did it first thing in the morning as it fit my schedule. I'm a morning person. So I would get to the office at 6:30, and from 6:30 to 7, I would have my owner time, if you will. No interruptions. I would actually go into an empty office with a pad and a piece of paper, or pen, and focus on those questions. And at first it is really weird. It's hard you feel kind of guilty, like you should be doing something. But if you spend time focusing and thinking about stuff, things start coming to you, and you start thinking about a different mentality, thinking of things as an owner versus, what we typically do, most entrepreneurs, myself included, if we let things go, we're going to get so caught up in our day-to-day, our tasks, that we never make any progress because we're not spending any time with the owner hat on. So if we start with just a little bit like that, over time we can figure out how to start making changes to our business that further frees us from those day-to-day tasks that we're doing. So I would say that's the biggest thing. Spend some time and schedule the time daily if you can, 3 times a week, whatever, even if it's once a week to start. And no matter what, spend that time thinking about the owner strategic level things. And once you start doing that, you'll find yourself that you're now doing more activities that are going to get you further in that spectrum to become an owner versus just an operator. So if that makes sense.
Yeah. Excuse me. So how do you approach coaching entrepreneurs to ensure that they make a smooth transition to strategic ownership?
Well, again, it's a spectrum, so you have to know where you're starting, of course. In my case, I had a fairly decent sized company, not huge, but millions of dollars, and so for us, with a lot of employees and everything, it took a little bit longer. I had to make that shift. I always say it's kind of like an ocean liner versus a speedboat. With an ocean liner, it takes a lot to kind of shift that direction, if you will, versus a speedboat can do it on a dime. So if you're just starting out, you're actually in a pretty good position because you don't have all these habits and all these things, and you don't have the restrictions that a larger company has. So a lot of people think, well, geez, I don't have to worry about this owner operator stuff because I'm just one person or whatever. But you're actually in a better position to focus on that. So but I particularly focus on 4 areas that I think are the critical things that I found for me anyway, help make that change. And that's what I work with clients in particular with those 4 areas. And that's really is the first one is, working on you as the owner. As we all know, your business is only going to grow to the extent you do. And the reason that we don't have the business we want today is because we haven't become the person that can handle that business. So we need to focus on doing, those things that the education, the self-improvement, all those things that help us become better business owners, because, it's not something that you come out of the womb knowing how to run a business. And it's usually not even taught in school, at least not very well. So it's something that we have to learn. It's a skill set. And then, the second aspect is building a team. And that again is a process. And it can start, if you're just one person, it can start with hiring a contractor or two, and developing it from that standpoint, where eventually maybe you do have employees, but building that right culture and building a team of what I call mini owners, if you will, people who are as dedicated to the company as you are and are not there just for the money. So if we kind of work on ourselves, if we build that team, and then the next step is what I say is making sales and marketing permeate your entire company. And what that means is that, you may have somebody who does like your IT stuff. And, of course, you typically think of somebody who's in technology as maybe not necessarily outgoing or big people skills, whatever. And so a lot of times there's a friction between them and maybe somebody who's in the sales department because they don't talk the same language, and not everybody's on the same page and all that. So what we try to do is implement with a business owner. We implement basic principles of sales and marketing throughout the entire company, so that the IT person understands basic sales and marketing and how things work, and the HR person, same thing. And the receptionist understands basic concepts of how to sell somebody. And by doing that, you give everybody a baseline knowledge of things, and they can effectively all be on the same page. And when we're all understanding how the other is functioning, what they're doing, everybody works much better together. And then finally, when you typically think about, sort of the operator to owner, everybody thinks about systems and automation in particular. And that's super important because you need those systems to be able to expand and be able to scale your business. The problem I think a lot of us get into, me included, is that technology is so cool and we have so many things available to us, chat GPT and everything else, these days, that we tend to confuse automation with systems. Systems and processes are really the key. So if we develop things that allow us to give the same experience to 10 customers as we do 1,000, um, automation is just a tool. So we only want to use it to once we have those processes and those systems in place. So if we focus on those four areas, working on ourselves as the business owner, becoming that person, if we work on building the right team, if we work on creating a sales and marketing culture, if you will, and focus on systems and processes, that is going to take you, 95% of the way to making that transition from operator to owner.
And it's amazing that you talk about that as far as business, but it's the same 4 steps that I need to do in podcasting. It's me learning to grow and improve on behind the mic, on building. Basically, when I first started, I didn't know anything about podcasting. Didn't know about descriptions, titles, SEO, keywords, and any of that. None of that. And I invested in myself and wanted to learn and develop and grow. And so I took courses. I took audio video courses because I wanted to improve and make my sound so much better. And last year, well, at the end of 2022, I implemented a system. I
Mm.
and since I've implemented a system with how I build my show, it's helped me save time on not having to spend so much time on building one show. Now with the system in place, I'm able to schedule my 3 shows for the week on Sunday. So
Mm.
I come in Sunday, I schedule the 3 shows that I have, my 3 live shows that I have that I'm supposed to have that week. Sunday evening before I go to dinner with the wife or whatever, I set up my system and just start setting up the week.
Yeah, and then that's a great point too, because the freedom that you're getting from that's the part that we all as entrepreneurs we tend to lose. It's so funny because most of us go into entrepreneurship because we either want to make more money and we want to be our own boss, so to speak, and set our own schedule. And then you talk to your average entrepreneur a couple of years after they start, and it's kind of like, well, how's that working for you? You're working longer hours and less pay and all that, but it's getting back that freedom that you're talking about, wise, so that you can set that schedule but also put those systems in place so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. And so that's really the key if we really want to get the benefits that we got into entrepreneurship in the first place.
And there's new tools every day. There's something new every day to help business owners, entrepreneurs, podcasts. There's so many. You mentioned Chat GPT, and people didn't look at it as what it is. It's a tool. It's a tool to
Mhm.
help you. It's nothing more than less. But people started making like, oh, it's gonna replace people. It's gonna no. It's still you still need the people to really do the work.
Mhm.
ChatGPT is not gonna do the work for you. You still have to do the work.
Yeah, that's the one thing I think you can't replace, and that like you said, people give too much credit for is I think the human soul or spirit or whatever you want to call it. You can't replicate that. ChatGPT is a great tool. I use it, for to generate ideas mostly. Sometimes it's wording ideas or whatever, and it is
Yeah.
amazing stuff. But there is nothing that can really relate to other humans like a person can, and you're not going to replace that. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
It's and that's why I love doing the podcast is because even with when you speak to entrepreneurs and coaches and everything, you realize that a lot of these teachings you can implement it into your own personal life
Mhm.
and see a transformation in that. And when you see that, it also affects your work performance and all this other stuff. So some of these key principles you can apply it to your life and make that shift on helping you develop and grow.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I've forgotten who said, I think it might have been Robert Kiyosaki, the financial guy, but I think he said something to the effect that, you know, business or entrepreneurship is the greatest self-development course you never enrolled in. And I think that's true. What you're saying, that, the principles that make us successful in entrepreneurship bleed over into our personal lives, because you can't really separate the two, because um, really business is about relationships and about people. And if we're going to get good at that, that's obviously going to affect our personal life as well. And all the other lessons that we have to learn in business to be able to be successful has so much effect on our personal life. Not to mention, the fulfillment and everything that you get in the entrepreneur world, in my opinion, if it's done right. And that goes back to, my original story that I was telling you about, how I didn't really have a lot of respect for our clients. I wasn't real worried about them. I was more concerned about the money. When I made that shift is when it really affected my personal life. And I started really enjoying what I was doing, because I felt like I was actually making a difference in people's lives. Whereas before, it was all self-centered, So I think you're right that there's this huge mess and crossover between our personal lives and our business lives.
So what motivates you to start your B2B appointment setting and lead generation company?
Uh, well, it's like a lot of things in life, like sometimes it comes from negative experiences.
Yeah.
um, my business partner and our first company was actually a website design company. This is back in the late '90s, and when the internet was still new for most people, and most smaller business didn't have websites, and so,
Yeah.
but my long story, but my business partner and I got into it, and we started doing that, and we started cold calling. I was the primarily one doing the cold calling, because of course we couldn't afford advertising and that sort of thing, because we were just starting out. And but we kind of stumbled into it, because it was working really well for us. I was selling here in the Arizona area, in Phoenix. I was going out on appointments and selling small business owners on why they needed a website, and all that kind of stuff. And but I ran out of time, and so we needed to hire somebody to help with the cold calls. And we didn't have an office or anything at that time, so we hired a gal that was working from home. And this is way before working from home was a thing. And so she started making calls for us, so that get me in at appointments. And then we needed more volume, so we hired another person. And I think we had maybe 3 or 4 callers at the time. And we got a client who is a business broker, which is somebody who buys and sells businesses, kind of like a realtor for houses. But so we got this person as a client for a website, and it was through a cold call that one of our gals had made. And he said to us one day, he said, "Boy, that gal that called me was really good. I really need some help with cold calling. Do you mind if can I like outsource her, or basically sub her out, borrow her from you guys and pay you guys?" And we thought, oh, okay. She's got enough time. And so that he started getting great results, and he told a buddy of his about it. And long story short, it kind of took off, where we realized pretty quickly that there was more interest in our cold calling and lead generation services than there was in our website design services. So we kind of stumbled into it, and 20 something years later and millions of dollars, it went from a, just one client saying, "Hey, how about this?" So it was we kind of fell into it. But it also, in a way, it's a good marketing lesson, that we have to listen to the market forces, listen to where the demand is, because the market will tell us usually, based upon the results we're getting. So in our case, we had to dump one thing and pay attention to what the market was, which was they wanted the cold call and the appointment set and the lead generation. So it's an odd story how we got involved in it, but that's how it all started.
I know it's just crazy how you went from building websites to finding that, okay, yeah, okay, building websites is cool, but what what people need, what business owners need, are lead generations, are being able to have people contact. Because that's one thing. 'Cause I remember, because I'm a '70s baby, so I remember when I had to go do telemarketing jobs, and you would have to call people. Some people have a fear of calling. Some people just have that fear. So I can imagine business owners having that fear of having a cold call clients, or cold call anyone looking to see if they need their services. So it's an amazing thing that you you just like you said, you stumbled into it. You stumbled
Yeah,
into something that you saw that, hey, listen, this is a need that people have. Why not take advantage of it? Why not let's jump into this, and that's what a lot of people fail to realize. Like, if you can find something that's needed, you can make an impact.
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And I think and that's the one of the keys, I think, is we don't always see where it's coming from. A lot of times, I mean, I certainly didn't grow up thinking, hey, someday I want to own a company that specializes in cold calling. That's what the last thing I would have anticipated. But the opportunity presented itself, and so we were able to take advantage of it because. But the important thing is we were doing something, and even with the websites, we were actively out there in the marketplace trying to make money, trying to serve clients, and trying to do all that. And another opportunity came along with that. So I'm a big believer that if you're not sure what to do something. Start something. If you start some business, do whatever, and the right opportunities will come along, but they're not going to come along if you're standing still. So if you start taking action, eventually something will hit. And at least that's what's happened in my experience, and I've seen it happen in a lot of our clients' lives as well.
Oh, it's ha- even with me, as far as podcasting, had I not taken this step into podcasting, it wouldn't have led into other things that I want to do. I would have not become a podcast editor, producer, video editor. I wouldn't. One of my things is to do public speaking, and it all stems from me taking that leap of faith, and starting the podcast, because now it's opened up different lanes for me. It's opened up different opportunities for me, all from me just taking that faith and, like you said, trying it, just doing something.
Yeah. No, isn't it amazing how life, we make one decision to go down a path, and then, like you said, it's if we hadn't done that, then this wouldn't have happened, and if we hadn't done that, then this wouldn't have happened, and it just keeps going along. If my business partner hadn't passed away and I hadn't had that, that change in my role at the company, I guarantee I would not be talking to you today, because I would have had no interest in um, promoting these ideas and coaching people, for one, and I certainly didn't like the idea of being on video, or even on a podcast. That's about the last thing I would want. And yet, through all that experience and a bunch of other related stuff, here I am talking to you today. So I think you're absolutely right. You never know where it's coming from. We just got to follow life sometimes.
Yeah, you absolutely right. You never know where it's coming from. You just go with it, and that's something that people in general are just afraid. Like, they're afraid of failure. They're afraid of taking that. I say it's making themselves uncomfortable,
Hmm.
and that's something that I did. I made myself uncomfortable, and I've realized that by making myself uncomfortable, it's allowed me opportunities. It's done so many different things. It's made me get out of that complacent spot, and want to take risk, and want to do things to really maximize the effort.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think it's a human tendency to want to stand still and um, not want to move. I had a mentor of mine, one of my very first business mentors, tell me, he said, even a turtle's got to stick his neck out to get somewhere. And that always kind of stuck with me, you know, and it's you've got to, you've got to reach a little bit. You've got to, if we're going to grow as people, which is how we're going to be successful, then we've got to be uncomfortable. But the thing is, if we know that if we're uncomfortable, then that most likely means we're headed in the right direction. It makes it a little bit easier, at least in my mind, you know, when I'm uncomfortable doing something, or I don't necessarily want to do it, as long as as long as it's not, of course, something that's unethical or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
but if I'm uncomfortable in doing something, usually to me, that's a signal I need to be doing this because this is helping me grow and helping become that person that I want to be. And so it's okay to be uncomfortable. In fact, we're supposed to be, you know. If we're too comfortable, then we're never going to change. We're never going to improve and grow. So not being comfortable is actually a good thing. So, you know, a lot of people, like you said, are afraid of change and doing things when they should be afraid of standing still and not doing anything, because that's the worst thing we can do to each other as humans, you know,
And
is
that,
to not move.
and that's something. It's just like you said. It's something that's been ingrained in us, where it's you go to school, get your diploma, go to work, retire, and then live your life. But they don't explain all the other stuff. They don't explain
Mhm.
you having to continuously learn. There's always learn. There's always something new to learn. There's always you not just being complete. Like I said, is you wanting more. It's
Mhm.
you wanting more, and realizing that if you don't take that risk, if you don't take that leap, then you just it's not going to fall in your lap.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like you said, they don't teach us in school, you know, that things like, I think we have this idea of failure as being this horrible bad thing, you know, whereas failure is actually good, because all it is teaching us something. You know, it's funny. I have a podcast that's dormant right now. I haven't done any episodes for a couple of years, but I had an episode one time, and I think I called it the best PhD for making money, and it was one of the highest downloaded episodes, and which kind of cracked me up, because I think people were downloading because they thought, oh, geez, he's going to tell me that I need to, you know, get a doctorate in whatever, subject or whatever. That's the PhD is going to make me all this money. And what the episode was about was that I always say I have a PhD in failure, because I've failed at so many things and so many techniques or whatever. That's enabled me to grow and as a company, as a person, and everything. So the more we can fail, the more we learn. And so that's truly how we grow as people. So failure is not something to be afraid of. It's something that should be embraced, in my opinion, you know, because you can't go through a failure without learning things and without bettering yourself. And, you know, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. To me, they're not failures; they're life lessons. They're
Hmm.
definitely life lessons. They're things you have to experience in order for you to learn from it and move on.
Yeah.
But oh man, Robert, this has been great. Now is part of the show where you get the solo screen and you get to plug away, let everybody know where they can find you, website, everything.
Great. Yeah. You can find me in most of the social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, you name it, under the Robert Poole. So it's kind of like the Robert and then pool, like a swimming pool with an E on the end. So that's the best way to get a hold of me. Or you can go to our website, totalbusinessresults.com, which is our company website. And feel free to reach out. You know, if you're in business, I love meeting new people and love networking with other entrepreneurs. So if you're, of course, interested in the cold calling side of the business, or, you know, you just want to chat about, you know, entrepreneurial stuff, love to chat with anybody. So reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to talk to you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for being a guest, man. This is a great episode. Time flies.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. Thank you.
Oh no, listen, pleasure's all mine. I'm glad we was able to get it done, just because you were supposed to be on last week, and again, life happens. But I'm glad things happen for a reason. Like I said,
Yeah.
that same day someone had canceled that today, and you just slid right in. So it worked out. It worked out. It was
Yeah,
meant to happen today. That's what it
that's
was.
right. That's right.
Yeah, this conversation was meant to happen today. But thank you so much for being a guest. I greatly appreciate you being on the show. I always have return guests. So whenever you have any like programs or anything, or if you decide to write a book and you want to promote that, you can come on and definitely come back on and have another great conversation.
Yeah, that's I really enjoyed this genuinely. Great conversation. So thanks again for having me on. This is I've been on a lot of interviews, and sometimes the it goes okay with the host. Some people you feel connected with, and just becomes real enjoyable, just a conversation. And I feel like I just enjoyed myself here. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That's a compliment to me.
Yeah,
I just
absolutely.
want for me, it's I just want my guests to come on and just be themselves. If just come on, talk about what you do, and just have a great time. And I just feel people enjoy that way much more. Just seeing two people conversate, and yes, we talk about self development, we talk about growth and different things, but we still it's something where we love talking about. We're both
Mhm.
passionate talking about it, so it shows on camera, it shows on the audio. It's just it's a great time and a great experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
But don't leave just yet. Let me close out the show, and we'll chat a little bit off the air.
Sure.
But once again, thank you for being such a wonderful guest. I greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody, it is time for shout outs. Shout outs to everybody who tuned in live. Greatly appreciate it. Shout out to everybody who's going to tune in later on the replays. You catch us on BS3 Network, Real Wise TV, and as well as the Stuck in My Mind YouTube channel. Shout out to my Real Wise production fam, Poppy J, Brandy J. Love you guys. Big shout out to the boss lady. Love you and appreciate you, baby, for everything you do. And as always, a big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless y'all. Be safe. You know how your boy Wise does it. Peace out.